I've been talking for a while about where esports is headed and how we're going to end up having this backslide into everything being a conflict of interest. And so what's ended up happening is in 2016, I was very vocal about the kind of conflict of interest that we were going to run into and why we had to throw up guardrails immediately. And so let me explain it. Esports is largely unregulated. We've seen the attempts to regulate it, and frankly, they're risible. So what do? Why are people here? Well, when you've got an unregulated space, but it's profitable, theoretically, it can be, and it's got a very highly desirable demographic that, classic 18 to 25, maybe even 18 to 32, disposable income demographic, people want to sell things to them. And so imagine if you could corner that market and create a functional monopoly. That's why so many people have been desperately trying to break all of the conventions that you would have in sports around conflict of interest. What do I mean by that? Well, again, I'll just give you some of the greatest hits down the years. I remember when a young chap called Nicola Nyholm with access to a ton of venture capital. I remember when Fallen's Skype got hacked and I got sent this file of all fucking Skype logs, and in there was a conversation with Nicola Nyholm and Fallen, and Nicola Nyholm hadn't revealed himself to the scene, but Nicola Nyholm said he wanted to run a player union and he wanted to bring Fallen in and a few other people, and that was essentially going to be his vector into controlling the space, and Fallen politely declined. Then the next thing he came up with was the idea of Refresh, and Refresh was a media outlet. It was a media group. They controlled media rights for the teams, and they just so happened to make a bunch of brands. And it was heroic. It's pre-Astralis, so it was like heroic. It was like godsend. Blah blah blah. And what they were looking to do was they were going to install a player of their choice. Like a Pronax. I think maybe Sean Gares was heavily considered at one point, and Fallen probably was. Iconic players to come in and run brands for the Refresh group. They would be given a small percentage of equity. Refresh would sort of say, we're just handling the media rights, but functionally they would control all of the teams. And who was it who discovered this? It was me. And they denied it. And then I got the contract and proved that they were all these teams were registered at the same address and they were run by the same people. And so what ended up happening was all the leagues and Valve said, yeah, you can't do that. Right? So they changed up, and we know Refresh went on to become a tournament operator, but the original plan was it was going to be a tournament circuit with teams they essentially owned and controlled operating within their tournament circuit with proxy players bought off for a sort of kind of pitiable amount of equity. That was the plan. Anyway, we did that. Then we had ES Force. That was when Richard Lewis was the only person who was speaking out against the Russian oligarchs. Isn't that interesting? This is where we had Usmanov come in and basically fund buying Virtus Pro, Na'Vi, SK Gaming. And I said, wait, this is Russia. You know what Usmanov is? It's Russian oligarch money. Oh, come on, Richard. They got the Olympics now. Stop being anti-Russian. That's aged well, hasn't it, guys? I said it's bad to have all of these fucking teams owned by one entity. And not only did they own three teams, three of the biggest teams, let's say SK Gaming, where they funded the Brazilian move, Virtus Pro and Na'Vi. They also owned a tournament circuit, a betting platform. You can see already the problems, right? So, guess what I did? Boop, boop, boop. Got all the contracts, got all the paperwork, scoured the fucking Panama Papers, because I think Usmanov's the only, well, actually not now, but he was at the time the only person in esports referenced explicitly in the Panama Papers, right? Went through everything, got all of that stuff, presented that. Everybody came out and said, well, yep, you can't have that. You're going to have to do something about this. You're going to have to sell some shares or do something, get down to all over. And congratulations, we saved the city again. Well done. Then we had WESA. WESA was an ESL idea, the World Esports Association, and they've gone on to essentially just do it with the Louvre Agreement. But what it was going to be was masquerading as a panel and players union and teams union. All of the fucking underlings and fucking acolytes of ESL were all going to be installed into a totally real like union, a round table of all of these teams, and they were essentially going to control esports under the guise of impartiality and neutrality, but it was completely owned and funded by ESL. And so I pointed that out and I called that out and I ran that into the ground. And now WESA is essentially meaningless. But, you know, as I said, ESL still win. And what have I been... And I'm going to just skip forward a bunch. We're going to skip past the fucking Twitch and Face It ECS League that had certain teams held equity and Twitch held equity within it. I'm going to skip the Blast partner leagues and the ESL partner leagues and the Louvre Agreement. And now where are we at? Here's where we're at. We are now routinely allowing Saudi money, all coming from the Saudi state, to just go into every team in esports, particularly CS. That's where we're getting to. And we're turning a blind eye to a number of other problematic issues. There was one story, and I don't think people just saw it, and it doesn't prove anything yet, but it might, by Corentin Philippe. My bad, sorry, I always bungle your name. He's just Coco to me. And this is an article, The Public Ties Between Heroic, 1xBet, and the Paradise Papers. And you can see there's this big snaking graph that I urge you to go and like look at and take your time. But I'll just give you the Cliff's Notes. And one of the things that's been going around for a while is that actually, remember how Heroic had no money and they were up for sale? And again, I stress to all of the people ready to deploy the lawyers, these are the rumors. And that is why he has written this article and why I am responding to it. You remember how Heroic had no money? And they said, we need to sell and we need to sell soon or we're going out of business. Remember that? You remember the headlines, right? You saw them, okay? So, in fact, actually, fuck it. Let's bring them up. Right, so just to give you a sort of breakdown of Heroic's financial woes, Heroic might be on the brink of bankruptcy. And you can see here, the hard times have come for Heroic. According to PlayGG, which got access to a letter addressed to Heroic investors, the organization needs 80 million Norwegian kroner to function until the end of 2025. At the same time, 10 million are needed before the beginning of the summer of 2023, right? And then what ended up happening after that, Heroic's crucial $1 million fundraise buys time, but CSGO.org still faces financial hurdles. So they raised $1 million to, stay afloat in March. Okay? And then in May, we had, and this is on HLTV, after months of struggles to raise enough capital to continue operations, the Heroic Group is now on the horizon of going private under a new owner. And you can see, according to a Monday release on the Norwegian stock market, the Heroic Group has entered into an agreement for Crow Bidco AS to launch an offer to buy all outstanding shares of the company and recommended its shareholders to accept the offer. It's expected to be completed in June. And that was the sale, and that was the end of that, okay? And nobody said anything else about it, and because I guess everybody just sort of took it at face value. Now, what this journalist, and certainly everyone's looking into it, because the rumors behind the scenes is that somewhere in there, some of the money is coming from 1xBet. And you can see here in that article, public ties between Heroic, 1xBet, and the Paradise Papers. There's this huge chain, and this is the new kind of brave new world we're in, where there are so many layers of abstraction and shell companies that people can just funnel this money into. You can go and look at all of those names and all of the links and how it all kind of works. In case you were unfamiliar with 1xBet, the company and its many subsidiaries is one of the main players in the esports scene related to Valve's popular games CS2 and Dota 2. Present as a sponsor for numerous teams, it also offers numerous tournaments in its name and actively participates in the esports scene. Now, by the way, if you don't know how big 1xBet is in relation to Counterstrike, 1xBet is an ESL sponsor, which, by the way, even though they don't need the money because they've got the Saudi bag, they're still taking money from a gambling site that is banned in multiple countries. And it also sponsors the MVP awards for HLTV and the HLTV annual awards, a new thing they've started doing. So it's fair to say, by the way, there's already a kind of head-scratching amount of conflict of interest just on the face. So a company that sponsors ESL also happens to greatly sponsor the website that does coverage that might also, might have to say critical things about ESL. But don't worry about that, because we've also got Sir Chad of Baggington on a supposedly independent, wink, wink, totally not an ESL-approved podcast. And, he also does the HLTV podcast as well. So, listen, I'm sure in the esports space, there's loads of room to criticize ESL in Saudi Arabia. Right, don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it. But anyway, one expert is decried and banned in many countries. True. Banned in the UK for promoting a Pornhub casino, allowing betting on children's sports. Also true. And advertising on illegal websites. Also true. It was declared bankrupt by the Dutch Supreme Court in Curaçao. I've done a video on that. And it was taken to court by Morocco. The government of Morocco. Also true. There's also been a number of problems where, if memory serves me correctly, the original founders are Russians, but they fled Russia to go to Cyprus. And I do believe there's some issues with one expert in Russia as well, most notably, but we just don't talk about that anymore. Anyway, so the first step in my investigation began with Bidco AS, a Norwegian company that bought out Heroic's holdings in the course of 2023. The deal was completed in June during the Blast Major, with the purchase of all the club shares for 56 million Norwegian kroner, or approximately $5.5 million. The Ulti Agency assisted in the negotiation. Ulti Agency is based in Norway, and if memory does indeed serve me correctly, you will also note the Ulti Agency were meant to be the people that helped broker the deal for the Gambit players to get to Cloud9 at a time when American companies and Western companies were not meant to be doing business with Russian companies. So just putting that out there. While Wickborg Rhein Advocat Firma AS acted as a legal advisor. At the time of the takeover, Heroic stated Bidco is a Norwegian private limited liability company that is ultimately fully owned by a regulated EU investment fund. Through this takeover, Bidco AS has been able to place a number of people on the club's board, including Michaelis Neocleus and Memninia Papadopoulou, as well as appointing a new general manager. Ludmila Marokchina has taken over the reins of the organization, and it is here that I discovered some interesting connections. The trio work for a Cypriot company called DC Sportsoft, according to their public LinkedIn profiles. You can see them here, DC Sportsoft, and Executive Director, DC Sportsoft. The Cyprus Register of Companies confirms this affiliation and adds a certain Evgenia Aklusina to the position of secretary, a name that I will return to later. But it's still important to note that she appears on another company listing with Dmitry Grigoriev, also a member of the board, and you can see that here. So, our latest stop takes us to Ludmila Marokchina, the actual CEO and chairman of the board for Heroic, through her multiple companies listed on the register of companies, named Mirach Limited, L&K Growth Partners Limited, and Star Tribe Limited. Each time we find her in the position of director and secretary via her name in Greek, or again, as it's spelt here. It is with the latter that it is possible to find a possible affiliation in the Paradise Papers. Ludmila Marokchina is also the director of Palombo Holdings Limited, a company that is linked to Imperium Nominees Limited and Imperium Services Limited. They are listed in the position of director and secretary for that. These two companies and numerous others are named and listed in the Paradise Paper via the Imperium Tower in Cyprus. It is a weak link, but one worth noting, between Heroic's new CEO and the data link. And in case you don't know, there was the Panama Papers initially, then the next one were the Paradise Papers, and it's basically a bunch of documents, millions and millions of documents that show like links between like shell companies and all sorts of interconnections when people are trying to obfuscate their connections and their finances. So now we get to one expert, and here we go. So back to Avena. And here it traces back to a public link with another company called Capsbold Limited. Michaelis Neocleus and Memninia Papadopoulou, members of the Heroic board mentioned earlier, also appear here. Firstly, because Memnia still works for the agency according to her LinkedIn, but also because Michaelis appears several times in the likes, again on LinkedIn, of some of Capsbold's posts. But it turns out this agency has changed its name on the Cyprus Register, and it appears that Nine Pandas, the esports org, Underdog is an ancient name of Capsbold, one they used to use previously before they changed it, and they have a guy called Dmitry Chernish as their director. So now you have another link between Nine Pandas and Capsbold, apart from Dmitry, who appears as the Chief Development Officer for Nine Pandas, but is also the director of a Cypriot company called Capsbold, which, according to the Register of Companies, also has Avina noted as the secretary. So now we've got this fucked up tie between Nine Pandas and Heroic, and as we're going to get to, certain other companies like 1xBet. So anyway, Nine Pandas is a very active agency with numerous project partners, including 1xBet, and this is a list of their partners. Crunchbase presents Nine Pandas as an agency founded by, wait for it, Sergey Karshkov. You'll know if you watch the other video on this, a name that comes up a lot when people talk about the creation of 1xBet, to the point of being put on the international wanted list. This is the guy that fled Russia after being involved in the making of 1xBet, which apparently the Russian state had issues with for a number of improprieties. Sergey Karshkov is indeed considered widely one of the progenitors of the website, even though you won't find his name on paper anywhere anymore. And you can see here, Sergey Karshkov was reported to have died this year in June, which, if you've been paying attention to the fucking word salad, yeah. Apparently he died during a medical checkup in Switzerland. And this is according to numerous articles on the internet. The Twitter account of the founder of Nine Pandas has not been active. And you can see here, he just happened to die in a hospital mishap, which is the most sinister fucking headline ever, isn't it? Anyway, there's no indication that and he ends his article by saying, with all of, and you should look at the screenshots as well, there is no indication that 1xBet or any dirty money was involved in the Heroic takeover or recent dealings. But it is important to note that these links exist. 1xBet, like many other betting sites, have become a very important part within the esports ecosystem, and the article is also there to one of these ties which are growing by the day. Now, here's the problem with all of this. You know, listen, yeah, you're not going to find direct ties. I know. I was digging into this. I was digging into this and found all the sane links and all the things. There's always going to be layers of abstraction. You have to be an absolute idiot to get caught, or it has to be like the 2016 days when no one gave a shit about conflict of interest. They just thought they were going to get away with it. It's just that wacky Richard Lewis guy talking about it. No one cares. But in fact, there was all these like useful idiots, like guys like Ryan and multiple people in the esports space who were all saying things like, well, no one would actually fix a game. No one would actually do it. I mean, just because they're owned by the same people, what are they going to do? Like, call them up on the phone. I'm using this as a prop, by the way. Call them up on the phone and demand that they deliberately throw a game. Because there's bets on them. Yeah, they're going to do exactly that, and people are doing exactly that, and we fucking know that now. So, it gets interesting, because even though there's no, like, slam dunk tie there, people are curious now as to where 1xBet are getting their money from, and looking at these ties, and it's being investigated. And obviously, if there was any money coming from 1xBet going into Heroic, they would have to leave the Louvre League. They would have to get the fuck out of ESL to avoid a conflict of interest, or ESL would have to terminate their sponsorship. It would have to be one or the other. They simply couldn't operate in doing it the way they're doing it. Now, I don't know where that investigation's gone, but I will say this. I do know ESL are looking into it. I know multiple parties are looking into it, because the links are too sort of crazy, and there's no smoke without fire, particularly in esports. So people are on high alert about that. But here's the other problem. We've got the rise of these gambling events where, and I told you, the one thing we always used to agree upon, and this was as late as 2018, we said if you run an esports event, you can't own a team in that event. We all said that, didn't we? We all agreed. We all went, yeah, of course, Richard. You don't even need to be Richard Lewis to get that one. You just thought it's just obvious, because they could get preferential treatment or whatever. All right, what do you think's been happening a lot lately? Turns out you can do it now, as we found out with BetBoom Dacha. By the way, is it Dacha with a like that noise? Because when I hear the word Dacha, all I can think about is 40k orcs. So I don't know. Is it Dacha? Dacha. There you go. Thank you. Right. It's a soft C. That's good. Because that was blowing my mind. Thanks for the lesson. Twitch chat. Educating chuds. Who knew? Right. So here it is. BetBoom Dacha. It is an event run by BetBoom. BetBoom, obviously, as the name implies, you bet. and they're implying you go boom. Boom is good, right? See what they've done there with the branding, right? There's a subtle implication in the name because right, when you think about economics, this is again, I'm a media student, so forgive me. When you think about economics, there is a boom period, which is really, really good, and a bust period, which is really, really bad. They're not called bet bust, they're called bet boom because they are trying to subtly, semiologically implant into your brain, if you bet on this website, it will go boom, money go boom, line goes up. So, BetBoom Dacha, they're a betting company, as the name heavily implies, and apparently you go boom if you use them. And they're a betting company, and they own a team. They own multiple teams in multiple games, and they run tournaments in those games, and they invite their team. Now, this is a problem for a bunch of reasons. Let's just do this part first of all. Run by a betting company, explicitly had betting adverts on it in Dubai. And you're going to go, but wait, that's haram. And I'm going to say, yeah, it is. But in Dubai, just in case you don't know, in Dubai, Sharia law only applies to its citizens. So they don't apply the more, extreme, I guess is a way of putting it, applications to non-citizens. And so, yes, this is another reason why, if you've been wondering why all of a sudden Dubai's on the fucking esports roadmap, think about that as an incredible thing. Wait, we get to expand into a country that will literally pay to have events there because they want to offer the best teams for their populace, but also we can break the same laws that you would hold your citizens to. This is an esports dream. Count me in. I will see you there. So there you go. So just in case you were wondering about that, there's the explanation. But we'll scroll down to the teams, and there they are, BetBoom. There they are. It's Astralis, it's Virtus Pro, it's Gamer Legion, it's MIBR, it's Cloud9, it's Furia Esports, it's Team Spirit, and it's BetBoom. Directly invited, did not have to qualify. So, immediate problems, I don't know if you know this, but aren't we moving to a fucking world where the partnered leagues are being dismantled by 2025? Are we just going to allow, right, all tournaments will in some way count towards ranking points by like a global ranking system that's going to be supposedly overseen and curated by Valve? So, hang on, what you're saying is I can run my own tournament, invite my own team, and earn ranking points that way. Is that going to be something we're going to allow to happen? Because think about it. Imagine a world where, like, BetBoom are on the cusp. They're like maybe, one of the teams like on the borderline to qualify. Just quickly run a tournament and invite a bunch of shit teams and have them win it. Super easy. If you've got the money, you've got the tendencies, everybody wants their team at the major. We're going to get to that in a little bit. So, direct invite. BetBoom directly invited to BetBoom's tournament. And I was like, lads. And I went, you know what, Richard? Not this time. And I cracked my knuckles, and I sat back, and I did the meme. I thought, let's see how this one plays out. I'm not going to be the guy. Not this time. I'm not going to help Neil this time, right? I'm going to watch and see what happens. And so, Reddit, there was a little bit. He went, eh. Wasn't a drama, though. It wasn't a big, stupid esports drama. Wasn't simple argues with Thorin over whether Fallen is overrated or not. The most upvoted thread in Reddit history. It wasn't that. So I guess it's not important. It's just the integrity of the game. It's just the moral fabric of the sport you all profess to love so much. But don't worry about it, Reddit. It crept up a little bit, and people were like, BetBoom invited to BetBoom. And Kassad's, well, he's learned it. He went, this can't be happening. And by the way, he messaged me, DM'd, and he went, Rich, have you seen this conflict of interest? And I went, forget about it, Kassad. It's esports. And he went, yeah, you're right. And I said, we are entering a fucking future where our shit may as well be WWE. Just forget about it. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. It's over. The barbarians got through the gates, guys. It's over, okay? I watched, and the event started, and it had the most ridiculous opening ceremony I've ever seen. They had like cheerleaders and trumpets and fuck knows what else. Okay, it was ridiculous. And then an interesting thing happened. The first games got played, and BetBoom got clapped. I do believe their cheeks are still vibrating. You thought that was an earthquake. That was the collective sound of BetBoom's ass cheeks. Look at that fucking result. It's ridiculous. A 13-1 on their map pick. Now, listen, I think they should just be celebrated for getting a direct invite to their parent company's tournament. And you, in Twitch chat, if you think otherwise, maybe you don't belong here. Maybe you don't belong here. So get out, right? Little callback there for any aspiring comedians. So they got clapped. And you know what people said? Oh, God. You know what people unironically said? And I had to sit there. They said, because they got clapped, there's no conflict of interest. That proves it. There you go. Case closed. That's what people were saying. No joke. And I was like, there's so much. First of all, the conflict of interest still exists. Second of all, what if they were told to lose that heavy because of the betting odds by their betting company, parent company? What if, why wouldn't it be that? Why wouldn't it be that? So that goes on and everyone just sort of relaxes into it. But the good news was I didn't have to wait long because people did start to fucking talk. And it was community people. It was people that mattered. So as the tournament went along, right, there was so many issues with this tournament. No shit, no joke. People were complaining about the tech problems. But here's the bigger issue. They were able, unbelievable, during the tech pauses, people were getting their phones out. People were on the internet. People were getting up and walking around the event. I was talking to people who were there. I was going, they could do what? Stare up and stretch your legs during a fucking tech pause. And even worse, they had access. Steam was open. They could get Steam messages. I will show you this. Because Note, who has been in the chat tonight, I see you. He put up a clip of a Zorte. Now, again, I don't speak the language, but there's a translation below. We'll get to that. And basically, what had happened was the Gamer Legion BetBoom game was delayed, and Zorte posted on Telegram explaining to his fans why it was delayed. And he said it was delayed because Gamer Legion wanted to flip a coin for the setups because 4 out of 4 games were won on the side that BetBoom played on. Right? And so, just to make sure there wasn't any fuckery, they wanted a coin flip. Now, you can see he's recording that and posting it to Telegram from the spot, from where he's playing. That is mental, right? That is absolutely fucking mental that is allowed. And so, next up, this is the translation. Again, thanks, Note. Appreciate it. They think they haven't set up some sort of internet here. I mean, there is internet, but you can't open anything. This is just so that skins are loaded. The guys are asking for all this to be shut off because they think someone will write info to us on Steam. By the way, a total valid possibility that can happen. Once again, skins ruining the game. My take will never age badly on that one. It is a massive concern for competitive integrity if teams can get Steam messages sent to them, and especially since BetBoom are hosting the tournament with their own team in it. Also told that tournament staff are actively cheering on BetBoom. Yeah, this is real. The staff running the tournaments were going out and cheering during the BetBoom games just in front of everyone. It's like, guys, can we at least pretend there's some sort of fucking impartiality? Because optically, that's terrible. But no, they had access to Steam chat, access to the internet, access to their phones while the tournament was being played out. And you might say, well, why is that a problem? I'll tap the sign. This is why it's a problem. It's a problem because, let's just say, theoretically, BetBoom, a betting platform, wanted to rig outcomes favorable to its betting platform, using its team as a proxy to do that in a tournament that is ostensibly meaningless in 2023. Because it doesn't matter if BetBoom win or lose, they can just give BetBoom the prize money. They can even give them more than the prize money secretly, privately. We'd never know about it. Not saying any of this is happening, but the reality is, this is why we have conflict of interest fucking rules in the first place. Except we don't anymore because people can't be bothered with it because I'm the only dickhead who gives a shit, really. Oh, okay. There's even more to the translation. Thanks. That's why it's great. It's great being the streamer all the other esports people like to watch. He's a 1K Andy, but that 1K is the esports industry, so it's fine. So just to read you the rest of the Zorte post. Okay, I'll tell you why we can't start the match. We are sitting on a setup that has won 4 out of 4 matches in this tournament. The guys say we want to flip the coin for this setup, but we refused logically. Second, they think that we can't probably lose 0-2 because we can see what the tournament is called and what our team is called, and they think that they are asking here. In short, they haven't set up some sort of internet here. There is internet. You can't open anything. There's just that. It's just so the skins are loaded. The guys are looking for all this to be shut off because they think that we will look somewhere like someone will write to us on Steam and give us information, but they don't understand that I'd rather fuck up the game 0-13 than beat them with such shit. So there you go. I mean, you just don't have to. You don't have to worry about these things because he'd rather lose 0-13 than win by nefarious means. So you don't have to worry about it. It's all good. It's all fine. Nothing to see here. You can trust it all. So this then went on. Actually, there was a specific part, and I'll show you some of the other stuff that went on during this tournament. And fair play to HLTV, although again, because esports is this fucking tangled web of fucking nonsense, you can't ever take anyone at their face value. Because HLTV is owned by Better Collective, can you even trust them when they denigrate another betting platform? You see the problems that we've all made for ourselves. But again, I think good job on this in general. They actually managed non-existent integrity. The first 2 playoff teams will be decided today, and the second team will be eliminated in joint last place. Plenty of cause for concern over the tournament's integrity. Many have understandably noted the clash of the title sponsor also owning one of the teams in attendance, BetBoom, but it runs deeper. Players were just now allowed to go backstage mid-match and even go on their phones during the technical pause. Team staff have gone on stage to talk to their players as well. This potentially allows the players to gain economic and otherwise key information about the other team that they otherwise wouldn't. And by the way, a lot worse than that. That's a very generous, not alarmist approach about the things they could be doing. They could literally be getting told money lines in fucking, and all sorts of shit. And when to lose and what to do and when to lose it and blah, blah, blah. Then there was this response to it, and you can see here. Fissure have released a statement to HLTV, as from Harry Richards. The phone in the hands of the player was under strict supervision from the ref. Due to power problems, the player needed to log into Steam. All rules were followed. Team Spirit will receive a warning for leaving the stage during a match as part of the tournament rules. They violated the tournament rules. Both Fissure admins will receive a monetary fine for the violation. So what they've done there is they've decided, you know what, we'll throw the admins under the bus, make it look like we've done something. Spoiler, you've got no way of knowing who the admins were, what they did, why they did it, if they've actually been fined. Doesn't matter. You just gotta take that one on the chin, guys. Maybe you look at the updates as well. If you scroll through for the fucking event itself, it's like actually fucking unreal how bad it is overall. Like there were just so many little instances of like potential problems and stuff like that. It's really, really bad. And obviously, I don't know if anything went on. I have no insight into that. I don't know if there were any weird bets or any of that placed on any of these events. I didn't get any alerts sent to me or any like questionable stuff. But the bottom line is we'll never know. And the bottom line is we'll never know because we've allowed this in the fucking first place to happen in the form that we've had. I've told you, and here's what I will say, and I've said it multiple times, and people know this. There's an ongoing trend of betting companies creating these cups and inviting teams. And what it does is, it has a net economic benefit in the sense that they advertise their betting platform to people who will be inclined to bet on the games during the games on their betting platform, very often with discounts and referral codes and that sort of thing, and, free money that you get if you create an account. But obviously as well, I know for a fact from talking to like people in the match fixing community and people that, I utilize as a source network for writing the types of stories I have done in the past. There are tournaments that are created explicitly for the purposes of being fixed. Okay? We know this to be true. And this is why it's potentially dangerous. I'll bring you back to ESIC. whatever you think of ESIC, at least they did try and lift a shovel to clean up all the shit that's in esports. But unfortunately, they did essentially fail. And I think they're sort of continuing to. But you probably missed some of the headlines because, again, the fans don't upvote this stuff. They upvote, this article's racist 3 times. They upvote, here's a clip of Blair. They upvote the drama. They don't. Reddit CS fans on Reddit don't even comment on the games anymore. The match threads have about 16 comments if they get made at all. So, anyway, no one cares about the integrity of the game, and that's why everybody can get away with all of the stuff that they're doing right now. But there was, this is a throwback, there was some sort of closure on the Project X and Majesty owner. You'll remember it from my Akuma Matata video. There was finally a ban for Alexey Shyshko, who was the guy that was the owner of Akuma and Majesty and Project X. And he got banned for his involvement in orchestrating match-fixing activities and facilitating cheating within various esports competitions. The ban follows an investigation launched in June 2021 in a potential match-fixing and betting fraud involving Shyshko, who had allegedly placed numerous bets on highly suspicious Project X matches. At the time, ESIC recommended its member events should not accept Akuma, which featured several former Project X players, a team made up of more than 3 members of the roster, or any team associated with Shyshko until the investigation was concluded in 20 years' time. But just for those who don't remember, because it's always someone's first Richard Lewis stream somewhere, or your first YouTube video, especially now the algorithm actually works, the reality is this. What Akuma did, they cheated. I 100% believe they cheated. Not 99, not any degree of uncertainty. The evidence is too ridiculous. They had a history of match fixing and nefarious bullshit. We know this because many of the players, you weren't allowed to place a bet on a team that had them in it. So we know that the betting platforms knew that these guys were bullshit based on the money lines and the betting data and the accounts that, for like GDPR and data protection reasons, they can't make publicly. So there was that. They had to bet on shadier sites or obfuscate their names or change the team names. By the way, if you've seen the same group of players in ESEA, by way of a for instance, constantly changing team name, that's why. They're trying to game the system. It's not because they're trying to come up with a snazzy new brand because they want to get a sponsor. It's because probably the previous name has been flagged and they can't place bets on themselves anymore. So, if you watch the clip of Akuma, they were like 150 whatever the fuck in the world. I mean, they were nowhere. They went to a CIS region qualifier for the major, and they narrowly lost to Gambit. They beat like fucking Na'Vi. Not only did they beat Na'Vi, he had like his worst performance ever in a competitive game in like 3 years. They managed to totally neutralize him. And all the while they're doing that, it's like, okay, well, anything can happen. It's like, it's online, it's inter-regional. All the while they're doing that, there's clips of their players doing this. They're holding wacky angles, their rotates are too good, the positioning's too good, and there's a guy doing this. And so what happened there was, and this happens all the time online, people were getting the live feed of the game, and what you do is you get the live feed and you just condense it, and you just look at the radar, and that's what they call being on radar. And so it's not a radar hack, it's a live feed that you've somehow acquired either from the event itself or from a data partner. And what they do is they have a live stream, and people have access to this live stream for the purposes of in-game betting and live betting, and then certain luminaries get access to this stream, and then nefarious people offer them money to get that for the stream, and then they place bets on a range of platforms under a bunch of proxies, knowing they can rig the outcome to win. That's the madness of it. That's something no sports will ever have to do. You can't back yourself to win if the opponent doesn't want to lose. You can't guarantee that outcome. You can't guarantee that outcome at all. In esports with cheats, you can. And that's what's been going on for ages. That's what Chaos were accused of doing by the Brazilians. Everybody knows it's a thing that happens. And so I'm utterly convinced, gun to the head, Akuma did that because the clips look terrible, the evidence looks terrible, and what happened as soon as the big brouhaha came about? They couldn't win another game. They were getting absolutely fucking dusted, and then they dissolved and slithered back to whatever nefarious rocks they originally crawled out from under. So that's what happened. But anyway, in the ban, they also talk about here E6 probes, which included information relayed by confidential sources, betting evidence, and match analysis provided by experts, determined that Shyshko engaged in activities that flagrantly and consistently violated the principles of fair play and integrity central to the ethos of esports. In one egregious incident, Mr. Shyshko was implicated in facilitating a match-fixing agreement during a Bulgarian LAN event involving Team Majesty, which he owned and controlled, E6 said in an apparent reference to Bellum Gen's Elite Stara Zagora 2020, Majesty's only recorded LAN appearance in Bulgaria. This plan, executed between August 20th, 2020 and December 2nd, 2020, involved the deliberate manipulation of match outcomes with the promise of financial gain for the participating players. In another disturbing instance, during the Time of Bet Cup event, Mr. Shyshko provided Team Majesty with an unfair advantage by enabling unauthorized communication methods, significantly compromising the integrity of the competition. Oh, what? You mean just like what could have happened at BetBoom? And it's a small betting tournament. Oh, okay. All right. So, we know people are out there doing this. I don't understand why Valve can't come in and just say, you have to apply for a tournament license. If we don't give you one, you can't run an event. And they could stop all these betting platforms, or it doesn't even have to be all betting platforms. It could just be betting platform. You can have a license as a betting platform if you agree to follow a list of basic fucking rules. And the basic rules are ultimately, you won't do this, you won't do that, you don't have your team participate in the event, and you have absolute supreme lockdown at your event. Because of the nature of your business, it has to be held to a higher standard. But no, we're not doing that. And the worst part is, while everyone will get hung up on the fucking betting side of it, and everyone will get hung up on the match fixing side of it, we are very, very close to some unbelievable fuckery as it relates to Saudi Arabian money. I've already said it, I'll repeat it again here. We had a rule in esports, we had a rule in CS that if you wanted to compete, you had to list your owners, and if you were a player and you had equity in a team, you had to put it on a sheet. I've seen the sheets. Valve give them out. Declare your ownership, declare who owns your team, declare, if you're a player, declare what equity you own and what shares you own in what parties and everything, so we can determine whether the integrity is preserved. Falcons are currently in the process of not building a super team, which is hilarious, but whatever. I suppose they never really claimed they were going to do that, but it is funny. And now we know from an interview with their definitely real CEO that actually they have a bunch of undisclosed owners, some of which have ties to the Saudi Arabian PIF. It is absolutely imperative. It is imperative that Valve make them list all their owners or deny them entrance into any Valve event, which is only their purview. They can't stop them going into ESL. Spoiler, they'll be in ESL. They can't stop them going into Blast. Spoiler, they'll be in Blast. But Valve can stop them entering the RMRs and the major cycle. And they can absolutely do that by simply saying, list all the owners, and we want the paperwork, and we want the proof, and if you don't provide any of it, you're out. You could do that. Fix that immediately. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to fix that immediately. It rocks the boat too much. And I'm starting to have a little bit of a worry about this new sponsor that's coming in, which again is a Saudi Arabian PIF sponsor that claims it's going to be sponsoring esports events. We got Ralph Reichart, former ESL guy, suddenly put in charge over at the Esports World Cup, and they're going to be turning on the money tap. And where do you think Ralph Reichart, founder of ESL, co-founder technically with his brother, but he was always the big chief, where the fuck is that money going to go to? Who's going to get priority? And then what happens when there's Saudi money in every single fucking team that participates in Saudi-run events? What are we going to do then? Everybody can be compelled to take a dive, or your money gets fucking turned off. The backslide we've had in the last 5 years on the conflict of interest issue is shocking. And it is going to turn this scene into dust. Because the one thing, it's all good when you're making your money. It's all good when your teams are fucking, living the dream and all of that bullshit. But the bottom line is, if the fans ever stop believing in the validity of the games, they are going to go away. And then all of the models and monetization, all of the people you supposedly are doing it for, they're gone. There's no point. It becomes a totally fruitless endeavor. And that's what we're staring at. Because we're allowing all of this bullshit. So, I don't know. If you're a real fan of the game, maybe speak out about this stuff next time instead of upvoting a nonsense thread about how a HLTV writer is racist because he referenced a national delicacy. Maybe, just maybe, we can get our priorities in alignment.